I'm the federal political correspondent for The Age newspaper. I've been reporting on federal politics and policy for about 5 years from Canberra, and I'm also a regular panellist on the ABC's Insiders program on Sunday mornings, recounting the week in politics and having a bit of argy-bargy about who won and why. Oh, look, these things are usually a lot of fun. They're also exercises in enormous frustration for journalists trying to get more access to political leaders. In times gone past, political leaders used to take the entire media pack with them on the same jet, which meant you got a lot more convivial access and relaxed access to the political leaders. Now, for the first couple of weeks of this campaign, in fact, the media were travelling commercial, sort of trying to chase the leaders around the country as they leapt from one city to another directly on their RAF jets. But they've now managed to secure some hired planes, so at least the journalists will be travelling on the same flight path as the leaders, even if not in the same plane. But it's a bit like a sort of overexcited school camp sometimes, the media pack travelling. Lots of sort of hilarity and collegiality within the group, and also some quite good competition about who's going to ask the best question and the funniest question of the day. One packs gear for all occasions. So in the suitcase this time around, we've had the umbrellas and the sunscreen, we've had caps, we've had summer dresses and winter coats, all in the one huge heavy suitcase, which is a joy to lug around when one's trying to capture every word of the Prime Minister or the opposition leader. But yes, it's absolutely true that these exercises by the political parties are both highly tactical exercises, so they don't want to flag to the other side where they'll be going and where they'll be devoting their energies and what sorts of things they might be talking about. So there are often times when you clamber aboard a bus and aren't told until you pull into the gates of an event where you're going and for what purpose. And there are times when you check out of your hotel in the morning in a city and are told to put your luggage on the bus and then put on a plane, and you're finally told where you're going at some point. And in fact, even in the last campaign, when Mark Latham announced his forest policy in Tasmania, journalists were put on the plane in Sydney and told they were headed for Melbourne. And then as we looked down to see the Bass Strait below us, the pilot came on and said, yes, you're right, we're not actually going to Melbourne. Sorry about the deception. We're going to Hobart. Not a huge amount, I must say. We noticed Kevin Rudd, obviously, in the leaders' debate, did talk about wanting to see world-class broadband in Australia, and we saw a bit of a mention from Labor on in their aged care policy, talking about a plan to subsidised internet access for elderly Australians. But really, it hasn't been a huge focus of what the leaders have been talking about. They've been much more concentrated on issues like tax, childcare for the Labor Party, health for both sides, and energy have sort of been the big overarching themes, and of course payments to seniors for the first couple of weeks of the campaign trail. Yeah, they do. And it's interesting because the last few elections we've sort of had lots of hype leading up to them about how this would be the internet election. This would be the election where the use of new technology really came of age. And the last few elections didn't really live up to that hype, but this one has. And so we've seen the Prime Minister of the country doing lots of policy announcements or messages he wants to get out via YouTube and recording these broadcasts and posting them at 5 a.m, which is always fun when you're a journalist travelling with him and you get the text message at 5 a.m. waking you up to tell you about the YouTube broadcast being posted. But both sides have certainly used the internet a lot more to post those sorts of video clips to control their own messages, and they've had a lot of free airplay being then picked up by newspaper websites and by the television stations running their material for free advertising essentially. And it's also phenomenally changed how print journalists do their job. So once 20, 30 years ago, a journalist for a newspaper might have gone out on the road with your notepad and a pen and looked for the call box down the road to telephone in to Beryl, the copy taker, exactly what you were going to dictate for the next morning's newspaper. Now print journalists go to an event and they're expected to file, almost like the Wire journalists are, the AAP journalists are, instant copy, virtually instant copy for your newspaper's website, and then sometimes you'll record an audio grab talking about what you made of the policy announcement and how this fits in the overall scheme of someone's campaign or compares to the other side, and then you'll sit down and try and craft something for the hard print copy version the next day. These days, well, it's a combination of things. Either if you're actually sitting down somewhere, you can get the laptop out, quickly type something in and then send it via your aircard into head office and they'll whack it up on the website as soon as they get it. Or if you're stuck somewhere where you can't actually pull a laptop out or use it, you can always just leap on the mobile phone and dictate down the phone line to the IT people and they'll whack it up on the site for you. There's risks for the politicians in it all because other people can now take your video material and change the voiceover, change the track, replay different stills that you may not particularly like or haven't thought through how it could be used for evil instead of for good. And so there's lots of that material popping up throughout the campaign on YouTube where people have, taken material that the political parties have put out wanting to be taken a certain way and completely subverted the message there. So it's been fascinating actually to watch how these things have really evolved and given other people who aren't professional political players, a chance to influence some of the events that happen day by day. I don't have a favourite gadget, I just like it when technology works, and part of the frustration, of course, with technology is that the promise of it is so great, but sometimes when it fails you just at the crucial moment, this can be an enormous frustration. Oh, we've had a bit of a competition on some of the buses about who can ask the sort of quirkiest or most inventive questions. So Kevin Rudd, for instance, when he was in Queensland announcing a nurses policy, and constantly his mantra is that he wants to end the blame game of blame shifting between the states and the Commonwealth, was asked by one enterprising young journalist, "Mr. Rudd, who do you blame for the blame game?" Which prompted a bit of a giggle and then a non-answer. And was similarly asked on the day that one of the polls suggested that the Tasmanian seats weren't looking quite so good for Labor as elsewhere in the country. He was asked whether it was just now time to cut Tasmania loose from the Federation and sell them to Japan, which after all would make the export of wood chips a lot more efficient, fiscally speaking, which then prompted Kevin Rudd to give a long answer about how much he loved Tasmania, and he was old enough to remember the Commonwealth Games in 1982 in which they left the map of Tassie off of the official map of Australia. Will be for the rest of the duration now, so this is the point at which things get very, very serious for both sides, the final downhill run to the actual polling day, and wouldn't miss it for the world.